Well, a major breakthrough now in one family's mission to finally get answers around the 9/11 attacks and how did their son die on that day. Geoff Campbell, did jets really bring down the Twin Towers, or was it a controlled demolition, as the evidence seemed to suggest, including eyewitness accounts of what happened on that day? We had Matt Campbell on the show a number of months ago, the brother of Geoff Campbell, who has been fighting to get answers about what happened to their son from the UK. And now we have some major possible good news in this, in the search for answers. Ted Walter is the co-founder of the International Center for 9/11 Studies. He's been dedicating his life to getting answers for the families of the victims of 9/11. And Ted joins us now with a pretty big breakthrough, I think, in this case. Ted, can you kind of set the stage for us, the email that you received, you and the Campbell family received in trying to get answers about this inquest?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Clayton. So last Friday, a week and a half ago, the family and their barrister, Nick Stanage, received an email from the Attorney General's office. Now, this is the Attorney General for England and Wales, so it's pretty much the equivalent to our Attorney General. And the email was basically notifying them that the Attorney General was withdrawing the decision that the Attorney General had issued a few months ago in late June to deny the family their application, seeking the authority from the Attorney General to apply to the High Court for a fresh inquest. So there's a few hoops that the family has to jump through to get their new inquest, but essentially the Attorney General said no back in June. And then the family wrote a letter to the Attorney General early September 11th, actually, saying that they would seek judicial review. Essentially, they would appeal the Attorney General's decision, and they laid out all of their reasons why the Attorney General's decision was totally unlawful and irrational. And the family didn't know how the Attorney General was going to respond to that. They were prepared to file their documents on September 26th, and just a couple of days before that, the Attorney General responded withdrawing the decision. So it's almost the only better outcome that could have occurred at this juncture was for the Attorney General to completely change the decision. The Attorney General has done almost that. They've withdrawn the decision to deny the application, and they've said that a new decision will be coming in due course. And we're very confident that the new decision is going to be positive because there's no reasonable grounds upon which to deny the application.
So the inquest, at the heart of the inquest, is trying to get answers about how their son died. Now, as part of the UK government, if sadly pieces of the body are recovered and sent back to the UK, under the government, under the law, the family has a right to seek an inquest as to how that person died. And it's amazing we really haven't had the equivalency in the United States, right? I mean, this could be our one big chance to find out exactly how he died that day and whether or not jets were responsible or whether or not there was a controlled demolition of those towers.
Absolutely. And I have to give the UK judicial system some credit for having this function of having an inquest anytime there's an unnatural death. It's not a civil case. It's not a criminal case. It's a separate legal process where a coroner, who is a judicial officer, establishes the cause of death. Now, the family and 9 other victims, Geoff Campbell and 9 other victims, there were inquests held for them back in 2013, all as one. And the conclusion, which is what the family is challenging, is that the impact of the airplane, in Geoff's case, the North Tower, Flight 11 into the North Tower, caused the tower's collapse at 10:28 a.m. That's what it says in the official conclusion, the cause of death for Geoff. So that's what the family is challenging. And their grounds for challenging that are very strong. First of all, they have new evidence, thousands of pages of evidence that was not considered at the first inquest. So that is one ground for reopening it. And it's not the Attorney General's decision place to decide whether that evidence is compelling or how compelling it is. If there's even a remote possibility that the new evidence could change the original conclusion, a new inquest must be held if the family wants it. Secondly, they're challenging that the coroner in 2013 actually didn't investigate or even consider the causation of how the building collapsed. There was absolutely no discussion of it during the inquest. And yet she wrote that into the official conclusion. So that's sort of an open and shut case. That's another grounds for challenging this insufficiency of inquiry. So when the family got the decision back from the Attorney General, I mean, this is a slam dunk case. And the decision in June, which the family had to wait almost 2 years for, completely was completely unlawful. It did not apply the correct legal tests that I just described. And it made irrational statements like the eyewitness and scientific evidence of controlled demolition would not have an impact or any bearing on the original verdict. And that's, I think, as you pointed out when you were talking to Matt, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Right. So wait a minute. It wouldn't have any bearing on the original ruling. So now we have all this evidence that it was a controlled demolition. All of the thousands of pages of documents and evidence have come out now. And that wouldn't have any bearing on the fact that the buildings probably would never have gone down if it wasn't for the controlled demolition of the buildings, right? As you've covered on our show, fires in large skyscrapers have never in the history of skyscrapers brought a building down. Fires, just a simple fire, which is what happened after the planes crashed into the towers. A controlled demolition is arguably the only reason that those towers came down. That's a huge piece of this puzzle.
Yep. Yeah, it is. And the decision was it was mind-boggling. And I think a lot of people, a lot of supporters in the 9/11 community sort of thought, well, of course, that was always the way it was going to go, right? The Attorney General is going to deny their application. But in reality, the Attorney General doesn't have any discretion. They're supposed to apply a simple legal test to the application that the family submitted 2 years ago, and they failed to do that. And the fact that they withdrew their decision, which our barrister, Nick Stanage, has advised, is extremely rare. I mean, he's never heard of a case of where the Attorney General has withdrawn the decision before undergoing judicial review, is an indication of just how weak their decision was.
Why do you think they reversed their decision? I mean, it was a pretty crazy decision in the first place, and we were all. I mean, I think everyone in who was following the story was pretty dejected by it. Oh, here we go. Maybe our one chance of getting answers, we just hit a wall now. Why do you think they reversed course?
Well, the simple answer is that their decision is not defensible, and if it had gone to judicial review, it would have been struck down. And so. And they, maybe didn't feel like fighting a fight that they knew they were going to lose. That would take months, if not years. And that would also cost a lot. And so in British law, there's a possibility where if the Campbell family had eventually won their case and we had gone through months or years of litigation, that the Attorney General would have had to reimburse the Campbell family for their costs, which could total tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the Attorney General was like, you know what, let's not do this. Let's withdraw this decision. We know that we're going to lose. And we don't see any way that, there's a possibility. Who knows? I think your viewers may say, be rightly skeptical of the authorities anywhere in the UK or in the US, what have you, and say, oh, well, they got some other trick up their sleeve. We really don't think that there's any way that they can have a viable argument for why this application should not go forward, and so we're confident. And if they do, we will go through the process that we were already about to initiate of seeking judicial review and eventually winning in a court of law. But let's hope we don't have to go there, and we should have a decision within a couple of months.
So after the decision in a couple of months, we go through the review process. Then what? We actually have an inquest. And can you, I'll get you out of here on that question. What does the inquest look like? How long could the inquest take? And will it be impartial, or are we just waiting for the inevitable whitewashing of it and they're going to sweep it back under the rug once again during the inquest?
Yeah, really good questions. So the next step, if the Attorney General grants her authority for the Campbell family to apply to the High Court for a fresh inquest, is that the Campbell family will do that. There's one more hoop to jump through, which is the High Court. The High Court historically has always ruled the way that the Attorney General has ruled. So there's not much doubt that would be successful. And then once the High Court grants the fresh inquest and quashes the original one, it'll probably be about a year before the inquest gets started. And this inquest would be held by the West London coroner, the West London Coroner's Court. Our barrister advises that it would probably take 2 to 4 weeks, the actual process of the inquest. And we will be in court. Matt Campbell and his family, the barrister, members of my organization, International Center for 9/11 Justice, will be in court making the case that these buildings were brought down by controlled demolition. And we Nick, our barrister, he's an assistant coroner, right? So he actually serves as a coroner himself. And so he understands this system very well. He's quite confident that we're going to get an objective assessment of the evidence, unbiased, fact-based assessment. And we will make sure of that. Now, we want the coroner to bring in the National Institute of Standards and Technology. We would love for the coroner to look at all of the evidence, look at all of the arguments, and realize that the evidence is overwhelming that it was controlled demolition. So that's the process that we're looking at happening a year and a half from now. And this is going to be huge headlines if it happens. Like inquests are widely reported in the UK. In any inquest on any sort of, notable case is widely reported on. And of course, this is going to, if we are successful, and we are optimistic, this will galvanize, we think, many dozens, hundreds, even thousands of 9/11 family members to also seek the truth and seek justice. And it really could be a turning point.
Yeah, I think that's the understatement of the year. This could make headlines. Yes, yeah. If the inquest allows that evidence to come forward to show that this was a controlled demolition, and I mean, it's a game changer. I mean, everything that people think they know about the 9/11 attacks is going to be turned on its head. And I would encourage our audience to go and watch our deep dive interview on the controlled demolition piece of this. We didn't spend a lot of time on it today because you and I have sat down and done nearly an hour-long interview about the specifics of the controlled demolition. So we'll link that up in the description below. People can go check and watch that whole interview. Also, my interview with Kevin Ryan, where we detailed how the hijackers were clearly not responsible for bringing those planes down, and that's equally compelling. So the work that you're doing, shining a light on this, is second to none. So Ted, thank you so much for this. Thank you for the big update, and we are hopeful that maybe we'll get some answers. Thank you so much, Ted.
Thank you, Clayton. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet, Ted. Thank you. And again, thanks to the team there at the Center for 9/11 Studies, basically diving into this and really shining a light on it. And so thank you so many of you who watched our documentary, also our interview with Kevin Ryan. I'd encourage all of you to watch that over the past few days, where we went and did a deep dive on the hijackers and how there's really no possible way that they could have actually carried out the takeover of those airplanes. So dive into that interview with Kevin Ryan. Amazing stuff here. So thank you guys so much for allowing us to shine a light on the 9/11 attacks, because I think it's time. It's time.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot more stories to get to. And also, I'd like to point out a chat that we just saw. Do you want to highlight this?
Yeah, so Geoff Costello, thank you for this kind chat here in YouTube. Jeff says, from Wilmington, North Carolina, he says, I ran into a Redacted fan at a local grocery store. She saw my Redacted t-shirt, and she stopped me to say hello and make sure the Redacted on my shirt was Natalie and Clayton's show. And that's so awesome. I love that.
I'm tickled pink by that. Thank you for sharing that. Two fans
viewers
in the wild.
2 viewers running into the grocery store. That's awesome.
Yeah. I wish I was there too.
More of you out there. That'd be amazing. Can you imagine turning off CNN, turning off Fox News, and turning to independent media? That's amazing. So thank you, Jeff. And thanks to the lady that said hello to you.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about COVID vaccines and the latest FDA approval. They are based on, I can't even say smoke and mirrors, but you decide for yourself. We're going to go through that. We're also going to talk about this new debate on net neutrality, how it is yet another government power grab. And we're going to have a guest telling us about recent upticks in turbo cancers. And you can take a guess why you think that is, but listen to the expert. We're going to bring you that on Rumble only. So those 2 data points, the fact that it'll be on Rumble only, may give you a clue.
And it's
but don't jump to conclusions.
And Dr. William Mackis is going to be joining us from Canada. So it's this is the first time that Dr. Mackis is going to be joining us here on the show. Of course, the mainstream media has attacked him, tried to fact check him, but he's not giving up. He's doing amazing work. So he's going to be joining us in just a little bit here on the show. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.